This is the James Golden Show with James Golden, a.k.a. Bo Snerdley.
Welcome, my friends. Saturday morning, and we are here. James Golden, a.k.a. Bo Snerdley, with you. It's our Saturday morning vibe. If you would like to be part of the program this morning, 800-848-9222 is how you reach us, 800-848-9222. We are, of course, expecting a little bit later in the program, the one and only Princess Diana. That'll come up later in the program. Also, we may have a surprise appearance by a very good friend of mine, a doctor, who I want to talk to about health, some other things like that. The hurricane is still going on. The aftermath of the hurricane, I should say, that affected so many states, and that story, although you won't find much of it in the mainstream press, is still very much front and center for many people across this nation. There's a story out of New York that we are going to talk about momentarily. It's a story I read about, and I panicked as soon as I read it and started reading who was involved. Again, 800-848-9222 is the number to call. We welcome all of you that are first-time callers from whatever part of this great nation you are listening. Please identify yourself as a first-time caller as well, so we know to pay a little extra special. We pay attention to all our callers, but special attention. Okay, let me get to this story right now with me, and I've asked him if he could please come in. He never sleeps. He's in a city that never sleeps, and he is the guardian of that city that never sleeps. You have seen him on television. Those of you in the New York market hear him on WABC radio. He's my dear friend for decades, a colleague, a man that has spent his entire adult life trying to make not just the city that he grew up in, but cities all around the country and the world safe for people to walk the streets. Curtis Sliwa. The reason that Curtis is here is this morning there's a story. I saw it first in the New York Post. I saw it in the Daily Mail. The ex-governor of New York, David Paterson, and his stepson were attacked by a gang in New York. And when stepson, and then I saw the name, Anthony Chester Sliwa, and I panicked. Because Anthony is Curtis's son, and we have known Anthony since he was a baby, practically. So first things first, Curtis, thank you for being with us. Is Anthony okay? Is Lieutenant Governor, the former governor of New York, okay?
Yes, they survived the ordeal, but unfortunately, Bo, this is a sign of the times in New York City. These streets are out of control. These random attacks can happen anywhere. This happened to be in a very good part of New York City, at least it was years ago, the Upper East Side. It's now had a slew of crimes committed to elderly people. A woman was just recently raped. It's just endless. And unfortunately, Governor David Paterson, who is the stepfather to my son Anthony, were walking the dog that they live with Mary, his mother, named Bella, little fluffy little yarn ball dog, their nightly walk. And they spotted some young thugs who were trying to get up onto the second story of the apartment building they live in on the fire escape. I'm sure it was Anthony who spotted them because, as you know, Governor Paterson is really sight challenged. He can't see but shadows. And I know based on Anthony's training, he has gone through the Guardian Angel training. He is fully competent and capable. He probably told him, hey, get off there. Apparently, they did come down. They started verbally taunting my son and David Paterson, but then they left. And then David Patterson and my son continued to walk the dog around the corner. And then outside of the McDonald's, they were inside the McDonald's. They came out apparently with some adults, and they attacked David Patterson and attacked my son Anthony. And they were able to fight them off. But unfortunately, they were injured in the process. The three thugs apparently ran away. The police responded. They're investigating. My son may have a concussion. He's got a busted lip, but he handled himself well, according to the people who were in the area who described what had transpired.
How about the governor? I understand he suffered some injuries as well.
Yeah, and remember, imagine how difficult it is for him. He's being attacked. He can barely see, but apparently he was defending himself also. And it may well be, as I dig deeper into this, that there were other people around who chose, like is happening all the time now, to do nothing or maybe film it on their iPhone or their smartphone. It's a lot different than when you and I grew up. Something like this would happen. Adults would jump in, especially when teenagers were messing with other people, and they would normally scatter. But it rarely happens now. Basically, people are on their own when they're walking the streets of New York. There aren't enough cops. There are only 32,500 cops. We need at least 38,000. And we are going to continue to pay for that day that de Blasio took $1 billion out of their budget. And they never put it back, Bo. When Adams beat me in the mayoral election, he had a chance to put $1 billion back into the budget. And who did they give it to instead? The illegal aliens.
This is a recurring theme, Curtis. I saw a report that looked at the number of hotels in New York City, and this is now also other areas, of course, in the country that are completely filled. And they are filled with illegal migrants that were let in under programs that Congress has not approved by Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. We are now seeing a lot of quote-unquote pushback on the supposed lies that are being told, but they're not lies. That FEMA Mayorkas has said that they just don't have the money for other weather-related incidents. It's not in the budget. They have offered $750 if you qualify to people that have been hurt in hurricanes, or people that are homeless, people who are without power now for over a week in some cases. There are still numbers of people that have not been found. I have soundbite after soundbite that we're going to play today with people reacting to it, some in the states that are affected. Yet we understand that you look at the amount of money that is being spent on illegal immigrants in this country. New York has been affected. You have been out in the streets in New York as they were trying to move these people into neighborhoods, and crime has gone up. This is being repeated at city after city in this country, and yet we're being told that everything's okay. The mainstream media, by the way, there's not a lot of coverage about the tragedy that is unfolding in multiple states: Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, North Carolina. A lot of these people, it's almost as if it didn't happen. Why do you think that is, Curtis?
Well, just give you an example. You mentioned all the hotels that have been requisitioned to house illegal aliens at sometimes $400 a night. And as you know, with culturally appropriate food, if they don't like the food we serve them, they refuse it. And then we, the taxpayers, have to pay for additional food services from Grubhub. They get health insurance, iPhones, smartphones, everything free. And imagine the technology the government uses. All of those illegals who are in hotels and motels are counted as if they're tourists. So it makes it appear as if in New York City we've had a boom of tourists since the lockdown and pandemic. They're not tourists. We don't want them here. We want to send them back to their countries of origin. But Papa Chulo Joe Biden, basically standing at the border with a checkerboard flag from the Indianapolis 500 with a czarina on immigration, Giggles Harris, Mayorkas, our Governor Holcomb, Eric Adams, just rolling out the red carpet, letting them in. And once they're in, how do you get rid of them? How do you extricate them, especially if they're women and children and elderly? They're going to be here for a long, long time, Bo, and we're going to be paying for them for a long, long time.
So you have now this emergency that has happened, this hurricane. People are devastated. Curtis, entire communities have been washed out, flattened. And people are saying, in many cases, and again, I have some of the sound, but FEMA's not there. That they have been going days and days and days, not only without power, some cases without homes. It's astounding. And yet we know that over $600 million of the FEMA budget was reassigned to shelter people that are in the country illegally. We know the money that has been spent and sent overseas. Now, some might argue that money is beneficial in terms of long-term foreign policy goals, but certainly what is more beneficial than taking care of the citizens in your own country who are in dire straits through no fault of their own? Kamala Harris has said, and I mean, we have it, Carlos. It's in the bites I sent you today, where Kamala Harris was talking about the money that they are spending on American citizens who have been affected. Just listen into what she said. Here's what Kamala Harris said.
Remember his number, 32. Today we got 32 days until the election.
Oh, that's not the one, Carlos. We'll listen to it anyway. She's reading off a teleprompter. Apparently it got stuck.
32 days.
On 32. I thought she was talking about O.J. Simpson here.
We got some business to do. All right. 32 days. And we know we will do it. And this is going to be a very tight race until the very end. This is going to be a very tight race until the very end. We are the underdog, and we know we have some hard work ahead.
Now, the other one that I was talking about,
and
Carlos,
the federal relief and assistance that we have been providing has included FEMA providing $750 for folks who need immediate needs being met, such as food, baby formula, and the like. And you can apply now for anyone who's watching this who has been affected. There are FEMA personnel who are going door to door to interact personally with folks, especially those who do not have electricity. But also that aid, if you have electricity, can be applied for online, and I encourage people to do that. FEMA will just basically verify your address, and then the process should take hold.
Now, Curtis, this $750, you can apply, but guess what? If you are not, quote-unquote, low income, the applications, people are saying that the applications are being denied. People that have lost everything. Because if they're honest about their income, in some cases, this meager $750 that the government is offering has been denied people, and they're hot. They're complaining about it. Meanwhile, you look at what you just talked about, the exorbitant amount of money that this same government is spending every single day to house, shelter, and feed people that entered this country illegally. It's frightening.
Well, that, and plus we're continuing to send humanitarian aid into the Gaza, humanitarian aid into Lebanon. We're the caretakers for the world, and we're proving once again we can't even take care of our own. And probably what's most disconnected by what Vice President Harris said is $750, and where are you going to spend it? There are no stores. They need supplies. They need
Right.
supplies dropped into areas now. The way we did, remember, originally in Gaza, we dropped supplies in the area. You need to medevac people in and out. You have search parties continuing to look for people who may still be alive. They need supplies. They don't need money. They need supplies brought in so that they can maintain themselves, the basics, whether it's RVs or whatever, just to get some food, some basic clothing, the necessities, because they've been wiped out. $750 is going to be maybe delivered to them in the future. What are they supposed to do with the here and now? She is completely disconnected.
Well, she's doing a podcast today. They made a big announcement. She'll be on the Call Me Daddy podcast. So I suppose, yes.
Is that her Mac Daddy, Willie Brown? Is he the host there? Well, that was her Mac Daddy, huh?
I don't know who that was. I don't know who Call Me Daddy is, but it's the podcast that she's doing today while these people, these American citizens,
wait, that was
suffering.
That was a Sugar Daddy there for a while. Mac Daddy and Sugar Daddy.
Yes, Curtis.
There's no denying it. Look, that's how she got to where
I'm not.
is.
Hey. Curtis. Please, thank God, Anthony is okay. Thank God, and the lieutenant and the governor. I don't know why I keep calling him, because he was lieutenant governor before.
Yeah, and he woke up one morning and they told him Elliot Spitzer has resigned, and you're the governor.
Right. Yes, thank God they're both okay.
Yes.
I know that we have not heard the end of this. I know that you are going to find out everything that can be found out about this.
Well, I did tell one of the cops who was a former guardian angel in the 25th precinct, I said, look, you've done a great job up to now. You are handicapped because we have Alvin Bragg. If they are arrested, they're going to be right back out on the streets. So I said, hey, you got 72 hours. Do a good job. And if you can't find them, then you leave it to me. Need I explain what will happen then?
You don't have to explain any further than that, Curtis. I get it, and they better hope that the police find them.
Old school. We'll take them old school style. We'll teach them how to get an attitudinal readjustment real quick, and we call it pain compliance.
Thank you, Curtis. Appreciate you coming in, Curtis.
Thank you,
on this day, 1962, the Beatles debuted this single, Love Me Do. It only went up to number 17 on the charts, but guess what? It was the birth of the English Revolution in music. The Beatles. Bo Snerdley, James Golden here with you. Next segment's going to be a little short. We've got a lot to do. Keep it here. It's the Saturday Morning Vibe. Do not go away.
Love me do, oh, love me do.
This is the James Golden Show. James Golden Show. 4 words that mean business. With James Golden, a.k.a. Bo Snerdley.
...2006 on this day, Bob Marley, honored with a heritage plaque at his former North London home in the Camden section. Bob Marley, the giant of reggae. We're going to have to take a quick break. As I said, this segment is going to be short. But today, big news. Former President Donald Trump will return to the Butler Farm Show Fairgrounds to rally once again on the site where he was within inches of being assassinated. He will be there. Also, the family of Corey Compatore has decided they are going to be at the event as well. This should be one of the most emotional rallies in campaign history. I'm looking forward to seeing it. I know you are too. We'll be back. We're going to have more. Stay with us. Do not go away.
The James Golden Show. It's politics, but theater of the mind with James Golden, a.k.a. Bo Snerdley.
I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way.
Well, there are a lot of people that still, even though the rain is gone, are facing obstacles around the country. Tomorrow is the anniversary of the passing of Johnny Nash. Natural causes at age 80. 1972, of course, he rose to prominence. He was one of the first non-Jamaican artists to record reggae music, by the way, in Kingston in his long, illustrious career. James Golden, Bo Snerdley with you. Later on in the program, Princess Di is going to join us. Our very own Lizzie Rattoballi will be here. Also, we have a special guest today, too, Dr. Peter Michalos. I can't wait for you to introduce him to you. He's just a wealth of knowledge, and I love speaking with him, and I can't wait for you to have a chance to hear this brilliant mind. And I can't wait, of course, to speak with everybody. Lizzie has always got something to chime in with that's just sometimes funny, but ironic. And, of course, Princess Di, her analysis of what is going on. We are now, folks, in the closing 32 days. You heard come out. 32 days, 32. Teleprompter got stuck on 32. 32. We're closing in on the month before so early voting is already taking place, and the ballots are being sent. We are in the final drive of this election cycle. Meanwhile, you heard me talk about the $750 that some people are being offered. Let's check in with a Georgia resident and hear what see what this Georgia resident had to say about this $750 payment. Go ahead, Carlos. That would
so
be
I live in
5.
Georgia. We were pretty hard hit by the hurricane where I live. It took about 5 days to get power back. Our mayor's done a really good job. But what really upsets me, and I actually evacuated to my parents. Thank God I was able to do that. But I've been on the phone with people in rural counties helping them do FEMA applications because not everybody's tech savvy. Not everybody knows how to do that. Well, what they're doing is they're only giving $750 per household. And that is if your income qualifies and if you don't have homeowners. So essentially, the only people that are getting approved are the people that already have EBT and government assistance. If you make enough money, you're not getting any help. So when you're paying for generators, food, hotels, can't go to work, and you don't have a savings to dig into, which nobody has right now because this economy is terrible, well, you're SOL. You got to wait for the government to come into your town and save you because they're not going to give you money unless you're low income. So what Kamala said 2 years ago about during a disaster helping the lower income, that's exactly what's happening. Only those people are getting the $750. Other people are not getting the help. And I'm sorry, but not everybody has a savings to dig into right now. It's just terrible. It's discriminatory, and it pisses me off.
Well, what she's talking about a few years ago, Kamala Harris did say it, that when it comes to disasters, that there needs to be, quote unquote, equity. And that people, pretty much, the policy would be that people with low incomes would be catered to first, as if people who have other than low incomes are not hurt by these kind of tragedies. Their houses are gone. In some cases, they have nothing to eat, but yet they're not going to be able to ask their government for assistance during these times because on paper they make too much money. This is Kamala Harris. Now, Ashley Moody is the AG in the state of Florida. She was on Fox earlier in the week, and I just want to play part of that. That's number 2, Carlos. Let's listen to the AG of Florida, Ashley Moody.
Everyone should be waking up this morning outraged by that comment. This is not something that has just happened recently, and Florida's been warning about this since this administration took over. Mayorkas has come in like a virus and infected these what need to be healthy, strong, fundamental programs to ensure the stability and safety of Americans in times of disaster. So you heard, they have taken the FEMA Emergency Food and Shelter Program and over time siphoned off hundreds of millions of dollars into basically making it an illegal immigrant resettlement program. And so when you see these states and cities around the nation declaring emergencies, even blue states, because of what this administration has done, encouraging more and more and more, developing programs to encourage more and more and more people to come here, the government, Biden and Harris, are having to fund that on the backs of the American people. And now, right now, in Florida, North Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, all of these states are hurting because of this truly natural disaster, not a Biden-Harris-made disaster. They're saying we need more money. And of course they need more money because they've been laundering it from the true intended purpose of this fund that Congress set forth. Laws be damned.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Now, the administration and their allies in the mainstream press are saying, oh, this is a lie. Donald Trump is out lying about it. They're all lying about it. Mayorkas himself said they do not have the money for future events. But here's the rub. There is no denying that hundreds of millions of dollars, like the AG of Florida said, have been spent from FEMA funds on the housing and sheltering of illegal immigrants. And so when people don't have the resources that they need right now, of course they're going to wonder why not. It is a legitimate question. And the premise that the money has been spent on illegal immigrants, that there were resources for illegal immigrants and Americans are suffering with no resource, is a valid premise. Let's check in. And this isn't playing well. And it goes across color lines. It goes across every single line that there is with people that are upset about it. Listen to this cut, number 11.
You know, at this point, the choice is very clear. So for you Democratic shills out there that's still trying to defend this administration, it's over. It's over. You've already had an example what it feels like when you are American first, despite if you don't like him. He always put American first. Now you have an example when you're American last. And they only give you $750 if there is a natural disaster that happened, because they have depleted the FEMA fund of $1.4 billion that was given out to illegal migrants for shelter and food and resources, just like we keep saying. But then they want to jump on the news and mainstream media and tell you that Republicans are lying. They're the ones not passing the bills. They're the one that's holding up funding. No, Department of Homeland Security, the director, all of these people that's in government and in power, they are the ones that work for Biden and Harris. That's who's running this show right now. The natural disaster that happened in these states here, and they do not have no money. How can you get on TV and tell the American citizens, taxpayer citizens, that you don't have no money to give them?
Easy.
Because you spent it all for illegal migrants. Y'all take a look at this video from Fox News.
Alejandro Mayorkas sounding the alarm on FEMA funding right after the devastation of Hurricane Helene. Listen.
We are meeting the immediate needs with the money that we have. We are expecting another hurricane hitting. We do not have the funds. FEMA does not have the funds to make it through the season.
This all comes as the Biden-Harris administration spent over $1 billion from a FEMA program on services for migrants.
I have to calm down because I'm really extremely pissed. I mean, I can only imagine. Like I said, I live in a hurricane area. I've seen our bridges and our roads filled with water, bayous, everything. It's just that we're in a flat area. Yep. But to look to see the devastation, I've never seen anything like that in my life. I mean, entire roads washed away.
Yep.
Same thing with Hurricane Katrina. And then you had Maui.
Except Hurricane
Hawaii, and what happened there.
They blame Bush 43 for that.
In all of these situations,
Yep.
the government does not step up. And now it's at a point where they are telling the American people that they have depleted our funds. It's not like they didn't have the money. Well, they just chose to use it a different way.
Yeah,
instead of what it was intended to be used for,
priorities.
Which is for natural disasters for our country.
Yeah.
You know, I said that I was going to write Senator Ted Cruz about this. You know, he's our senator up there.
Yeah.
And I'm going to write him. Because they need to dig somewhere.
That pays off for you, because let me tell you something. We're going to move away from her, because we got another one, Stephen Miller, who the liberals just excoriated, sounding the alarm, especially during the Trump administration where he served, on illegal immigration. He was on Fox the other night. And just listen to Stephen Miller for a few moments, and we head to a break. Listen to Stephen Miller. Go ahead,
This
Carlos.
is the gravest betrayal of American citizens this country has ever seen. The reason why those Americans in North Carolina, those mothers, those fathers, those precious little children, were left to die, were left on rooftops begging their government for help that never came, is because Kamala Harris turned FEMA into an illegal alien resettlement agency. Its manpower, its dollars, its resources, its mental energy was spent over the last 4 years learning how to do one thing, how to get illegal aliens from outside the country into your town. And so when disaster struck, they were not ready, they were not prepared, they were not capable, and they did not care. And our fellow citizens, including babies, children, young kids, were left to suffer and drown. They did not scramble the helicopters. They did not scramble the military. They did not send needed assistance. But if those children had been living in a foreign country, they've been living in Haiti, or they've been living in Venezuela, why then Kamala Harris would have sent in help immediately.
That is the sentiment. James Golden, a.k.a. Snerdley, telephone number 800-848-9222. Again, if you're a first-time caller, we welcome you in. We're going to grab some calls. As we remind you that coming up later on in the program, Princess Di will join us. Coming up, Lizzie Rattoballi will join us. And coming up later, you're going to hear from a man that I just found fascinating, Dr. Peter Michalos, as well. James Golden. Bo Snerdley with you. 1974, Olivia Newton-John goes to number one with this one, On This Day.
I love you. I honestly love you.
The James Golden Show. The James Golden Show. It's politics, but theater of the mind with James Golden, a.k.a. Bo Snerdley.
In 1978 on this day, James Valentine, guitarist with Maroon 5, is born. Of course, their big album was Songs About Jane back in when? 2004. Happy birthday, James Valentine. James Golden, Bo Snerdley with you here. Let's grab one or two quick calls. Leah in New Jersey, you're up first. How are you this morning?
Oh, good morning, James. Good morning, James.
Good morning. How are you?
Good, thank you. Listen, I'm interested in North Carolina, those Appalachian Mountains. I've heard that where they had that hurricane, those mountains are filled with lithium and quartz, and there's something really nefarious going on there where they're not letting FEMA or anybody go in and help these people, and that the government or somebody who wants that land is going to come in and swoop that up.
Okay, now let me just address that, because these rumors are flying all around social media, and the story that there is confiscation or there is going to be eminent domain in some of these lands, I read a report today that those stories have been debunked. Now, I must be careful when I say they've been debunked, because I'm getting that information from the same source, in many cases that I don't trust to deliver accurate news. But I would be very careful about some of the stories that are being especially circulated on social media platforms where you can't source them. And it apparently, this idea that there is, it's a conspiracy theory pretty much that some of these towns have, as you said, valuable natural resources, and the people are being told. I saw one video with a woman claiming that the government said they were going to just go in and bulldoze it, never mind the dead bodies that were there, whatever. They were just going to take the land and seize the land. Some of those stories have been debunked. That is not what's happening, apparently. Now, the people that have been, there's one town, a popular tourist town, I believe it's called Chimney Rock. It's been totally wiped out. It was swept into the lake that it bordered, the entire town. Others have been flattened. I think there's enough that we can. People are trying to help. There are multiple relief efforts underway, by the way. And so if your heart is calling you to help out that way, please listen to your heart. There are enough things that we know are factual that are happening that make this one of the biggest disasters, natural disasters of the past century. And there are so many people being affected. There are so many people that are still waiting for help. So I want to just make sure that we deal with accurate information, and some of this information about the seizure of lands is apparently inaccurate. But thank you for the call, Leah, and I really thank you for the concern that you and so many of us feel. Sandra in New Jersey, you're up next.
Oh, good morning, James. James, this call, I would like to direct it to the people who either do not want to vote or are undecided. And here's why I'm going to say this. About a week ago, a very lovely young man came to my home to fix the problem that I had. And I stayed in touch with him because I liked him. And I asked him, I texted him last night. No, not like that. I liked him as a human being.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So I texted him last night, and I asked him, are you going to vote? Are you going to vote? And he said, no, I'm not voting. So I texted him back. I said, we have to talk. And then in the middle of the night, I'm thinking, what would I say? And then I realized, because I had the TV on all night when I was sleeping, and I'm looking at the devastation, and I'm thinking, so many people, no matter what you say, they're not going to be able to vote. And if they were able to vote, they're not going to vote for Kamala because of this devastation and how they're mistreated. So I would like to say to this young man, look, you don't want to vote for one of these people who will not be able to vote. Give them your vote. So that's the point I want to make, that anyone who's undecided or who will not vote, give your vote to those people who cannot vote because they're stuck over there. They're stranded by the mudslides, by the broken roads, by the trees that fall down on the polling booth. You know what I'm saying, James?
Yes. And by the way, there are a lot of people who will not be able to vote simply because they lost their lives in this devastation. There are still hundreds of people that are unaccounted for, by the way. And so I think it's a very interesting thing that you're saying here. If you don't want to vote for yourself, then do it in honor of people that cannot vote because they have been subjected to this disaster that is totally beyond their control. And that's a good thought. And so in the middle of the night, while you're thinking about this young man, hopefully, Sandra, he must have been a really nice guy, huh?
James, listen, you remember how you said one day you're going to let people talk about their love story that are not on the WABC stuff? And you said you'll pick me. One day I'll tell you my love story. I have a beautiful love story with my husband. But this man was just a good quality guy. He came here, and I liked him. And I just felt, I'm doing a book event, and I was actually going to invite him. But in order to do that, I had to understand where he stands politically. So that was the reason,
Okay, I got you, honey. I'm just innocent questions to my dear Sandra. Thank you, Sandra. I appreciate it so much. All right, we are heading into, of course, the end of our number uno. Our number duo will be coming up in the next hour. Lizzie Rattoballi will join us. She is Red Apple Media News anchorette, and we'll be pleased to catch up with her. In the rest of that hour, later on, we're going to hear from Dr. Peter Michalos is going to be with us. Later on in the program, Princess Di will join us. I cannot wait to get Princess Di's take. We are here now 32 days from the election. It's crunch time, folks. We got another 4 weeks. You see how quickly this election cycle has passed by and is passing by. Keep it right here. Our number duo coming up, James Golden, Bo Snerdley with you. Do not go away.
This is the James Golden Show with James Golden, a.k.a. Bo Snerdley.
Welcome, my friends. Our number duo. James Golden here with you. Bo Snerdley. Telephone number 800-848-9222. 800-848-9222. Joining us on the Saturday Morning Vibe, our very own Lizzie Rattoballi of Red Apple Media anchorette. How are you this morning, Lizzie?
I am doing well. How are you doing, Bo?
Well, I'm doing mostly okay. That story that I talked about in the beginning of my first hour, Curtis Sliwa, a colleague, having his son involved and the governor of New York being beaten pretty much by a mob of teenagers, a bit disturbing. Of course, what's going on in many parts of this country.
Brutal.
With the lack of response for this horrific hurricane that came through. Disturbing. So many other things disturbing, but there were always bright spots in the news and other things, and you have a few interesting stories to share with us this morning.
Yeah, a little bit off the beaten path in terms of the news cycle. A lot of stuff, I guess, starting off with probably the most, this is in the same vein of disturbing. A woman was forced to flee her home over in the UK after someone broke into her house and did a bunch of chores.
You say this is disturbing. A lot of people would welcome this, except it's okay. You talk about weird. This is weird.
This is weird. This is next level. So a 36-year-old guy in the UK, he entered this woman's home, obviously without her permission, while she was away at work.
She was at work.
She was at work, working hard, doing her job, being an upstanding citizen, contributing to society. And this guy, meanwhile, he sees a free house. He sees an open, well, I guess a closed door, but he opens that door and he goes inside, does her laundry, fills up her bird feeders, cleans the floors, puts the groceries away, takes out the trash. He even leaves her a note. This is the disturbing part to me. This is really like, if I came home to a clean house and this note, I think I would, I don't even know what I would do. I maybe like seek, euthanasia. Don't worry, be happy, eat up, and scratch. I don't even know what scratch. Yes. Like that sense, I have like goosebumps like right now reading that. Scratch is very weird to me. I mean, I looked it up thinking it was like a UK thing, but I couldn't really figure out what scratch means in this context.
This guy comes in, does her laundry, probably including her, unmentionables.
Delicates, yes.
The delicates. Feeds up the bird feeders, cleans her floors, puts her groceries away, takes out the garbage, and then leaves her a note. Don't worry, be happy, eat up, and scratch.
And scratch. Like, what does a scratch is really sticking out to me the most? I mean, don't worry, be happy. I mean, obviously, like that. No, I'm very worried and I'm very unhappy. Some stranger was in my house. And also, of course, he's happy. He apparently one of the things he consumed from her kitchen was a bottle of wine. So, of course, he has no worries.
Well, I mean, after all, look, he did the housework. I mean,
he's got to reward himself, pay it back. But, apparently
he was
also
arrested.
And apparently he's done this before too. He was arrested for another burglary where at that time he washed his own clothes and again like ate the person's food. So he pleaded guilty to 2 counts of burglary. He was only sentenced to 22 months in prison. Not a hefty sentence.
Well, hopefully
honestly.
He got his little cleaning fetish taken care of while he was. Look, I mean, but I mean, come on. There were worse things. I mean, yes, it's scary. Yes, it's frightening, especially when you get a note urging you to scratch. But at least she had a clean house.
Yeah, and
and her laundry was done.
She was like more, scared if it was like someone who she knew and it was like going to become like a stalker or thing. But it seems like this guy is just like a one and done deal.
Yeah. Okay, what else you got for us, Lizzie?
Okay, well, we're talking about, disturbing and kind of scary stuff. We'll kind of stay in that vein, but a little more removed. It's more in the, wild and natural world. The voting in Fat Bear Week had to be pushed back because one of the contestants was killed by a rival fat bear.
What is Fat Bear?
Fat Bear. Okay, so this is a contest at the Katmai Park over in Alaska. They, it's a user.
Alaska.
Yeah, it's open to the public. They could vote.
Okay.
There's a huge bear preservation, the National Park and Preserve, where they have over 2,000 brown bears in that preserve, and only a handful make it to this competition every year. It's actually the 10th year that they've done this, where they open it up to the public to vote on their favorite fat bear. And they actually have like live stream cameras where you could see.
So they have live stream cameras of the bears.
Yeah, and you could see the bears in action. And that's how people actually witnessed this killing of bear number 402. She was a female bear. A lot of these bears don't really have, there's 2,000 of them. They don't name every 2,000 bear. They just kind of number them. And, the internet then assigns their favorites any little nicknames. Like number 32 is a fan favorite. That's a Chunk. He's known as Chunk on the internet. But Bear 402 was killed in this live stream by another bear, 469. He was a
Well,
male.
I mean, come on. Let's just get down. Get down on it, Lizzie. Let's get the real. Look, bear 469. 469 was a male. And poor little bear 402, even though she was fat, she was a she.
Yes.
So you had like a domestic violence situation in a way. Kind of, sort of.
No, exactly.
thing.
And a lot of people are, like upset about this. They were asking the preserve to step
Why
in.
did the male bear kill the female bear? What happened?
They're animals. They're wild animals. That's why he did it at the end of the day. I mean, people, sort of, personify them and, try to attribute these different storylines.
I'm not blaming the victim here, but did the female bear say something to the male bear? What happened? Do we know?
Yeah, the stream, according from a naturalist with the explore.org who runs this competition, they say that the challenge from the male bear appeared predatory. So it seems that he was in the middle of something, and then, bear 402, the female bear, comes into sight, and then he didn't like that. So, then he kind of flipped out. But
so he was trying to get his bear on, and she interrupted him.
Exactly. And, at the end of the day, they are wild animals. Their motives are motivated by their wild instincts. So, we can't really know, what prompted this bear to just go buck wild and kill a fellow contestant in this competition. But, either way, one less bear to beat out.
Well, what happened to the male bear? Did they do anything to him?
No, he's fine. He's actually also notably not in the running, did not make the bracket at all. Voting is open until October 8th if anyone wants to vote on explore.org. But Chunk, I mentioned Chunk before, number 32. He is up today for vote against number 856. So everyone, any Chunk fans out there listening, go vote for your boy.
Ugh. All right. Now, you talk about despicable. You sent me a story that despicable. I wonder if you know which one it is. Despicable.
Oh, I think I could guess. It's coming from Nevada, politician.
That's it. Despicable.
Yeah, so this Nevada politician apparently used $70K that was meant for a statue of a police officer who was killed on the job back in 2014, who was shot and killed in the line of duty, and used those funds for herself. She used them on plastic surgery, rent, and her daughter's wedding.
This is amazing. And by the way, before you start saying she must be I'm sadly not a Democrat.
Yeah, she actually went viral.
A Nevada Republican politician ran unsuccessfully 2 years ago to be the state treasurer. Can you imagine this woman in charge of the state finances?
She wanted a bigger wallet.
Found guilty. Funds raised for a statue honoring a slain police officer. She used it for her. This is just despicable.
No, it is. And she actually went viral. You noted that she is not a Democrat. She actually went viral a few years ago for posing with her family Christmas cards, and they all had guns in that photo. So that went like super viral because
let's not blame the guns.
But so she's like no stranger to making headlines. But this time, I mean, it's not for something of like a difference in policy or values. It's what comes down to is that she committed a crime. She was actually appointed as a judge back in 2022 after losing that state treasury run. And notably, she does not have a law degree. She was appointed as a state judge, but she does not have a law degree. So already, her credentials looking a little murky. And as a frequent watcher of Real Housewives, I get a lot of TikToks on plastic surgery. I really do wonder. I don't mean to be too shady, too mean, but I really do wonder what exactly she got done, because I was looking at pictures of this woman. I don't know. $70K well spent. I don't know about that. She may have to. I guess the taxpayers have to get their money back because the doctors didn't do too well. The doctors did not do too well. She kind of looks.
That's a nice way to say the woman's ugly. You just say the woman's ugly.
She looks like a Muppet, is what I'll say. She looks like a Muppet, and
Goodness,
not
Lizzie.
a good look.
We're not supposed to talk about the way people look, but I'll tell you what, she's charged with 6 counts, 20 years on each count. That's the possible penalty. I bet you there are a lot of people that hope she gets the max.
Yep.
Yeah. Lizzie, that's what we have time for today. There's a story, a little sad to see this one. You sent me a story, Warner Brothers jumped in. There's an event at a library. There was a Harry Potter event that's been going on for years, but they got a cease and desist order from Warner Brothers. Hey, this is our intellectual property. You're not supposed to do that. And they had to cancel the event.
It's sick. The IP is like the only thing that these media brands hold now that are of any value because the actual brands, Warner Brothers, who cares about Warner Brothers? They don't have any backing from the public. I mean, all these mergers, they're constantly changing all these outlets. There's no public faith in them. The IP is what gets their money at the end of the day.
Well, Lizzie, look, there is a solution. It's called ask permission. IP. This is the world that we live in, so we just got to deal with it. Hopefully they can find another way to make something happen at the library. Lizzie, thank you so much. Great selection of stories this morning.
Thank you so much, Bo.
I still want to know what this fat bear thing just has me. Oh, it's just terrible. Got it, Lizzie. Thank you so much. James Golden, a.k.a. Bo Snerdley, with you here. 800-848-9222 is the number. Beyonce starts 9-week number 1. 2003. This is the song we like. The song that beat this one out as the longest charting number 1 single of all time wasn't this one. It was Bad Boy. But we like this one, so we're playing it. Yeah, Baby Boy, whatever. The Queen Bee. No show at the DNC convention. Smart. Yeah, Lizzie's probably still upset about that. Anyway, James Golden started with you here. Your phone call's coming up. Dr. Peter Michalos is coming up. Princess Di is coming up. So much more to do. Keep it right here and don't go away.
This is the James Golden Show. James Golden Show. 4 words that mean business with James Golden, a.k.a. Bo Snerdley.
Sad day in music history. Tomorrow's the anniversary. English songwriter, record producer, musician Rod Temperton passed away. This is one of Rod Temperton's better-known songs. But this guy, I'm telling you, he's one of my favorite songwriters of all time. This is another one you might recognize. So many hits, so many artists. This, of course, George Benson. Produced by The Q, as was Michael Jackson. Give Me the Night. George Benson, Rod Temperton. There, you can find his songs, so many of them. Brothers Johnson did a few. This is where they got their start. Rod Temperton was the songwriter behind Heat Waves. And that's where they first came to light, Quincy Jones then recruited him for the Off the Wall album by Michael Jackson. The rest is histoire. Let's head to the telephones. Dom in Minnesota, how are you?
Yeah, good morning, Bo. You know, FEMA has now become the Federal Equity Mitigation Center. I think every single person that receives the $750 check from FEMA should send it back to the White House with a note that says, Mr. Biden, please use it to hire the best legal help when you're impeached. That would
well, you know what? Impeach nothing. Look, he's gone in January. It's over if he makes it to January, and I'm not saying that he wouldn't. I hope he does. But the other day, he went before the press. And the poor guy, they asked him about the storm zone. Did he ever? He was busy praising Kamala Harris for having Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney at her event. In fact, he says he's never been so proud of Kamala Harris because she had Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney, who they used to call every horrible name under the sun. He also, by the way, Biden is also, he's throwing a few at Kamala. He said, I'm trying to find, let me find this story. He's saying pretty much, look, Kamala had everything. She's trying to distance herself from his policies, trying to carve out her own niche. Okay. Biden says he and Kamala Harris are singing from the same song sheet. She's busy out trying to say, look, I'm not Biden. I'm not responsible for all this horror that's going on in the country. He's saying, yep, we're singing from the same song sheet. I'm in constant contact with her. She's aware we're singing from the same song sheet. She helped pass all the laws like these immigration. Yep, she helped. She had a hand in all of it. Thanks, Joe. But anyway, Biden is not going to be a factor. There's not going to be anything that happens to Biden in terms of Congress going at him one more time. Look, we're a month away. Dom, who do you think is going to win the election?
No, I think Trump's going to win the election. That's a given because a lot of people I talk to that are Democrats are going to vote for Trump, as far as I know, my neighbors. But the point I was trying to make was not so much the impeachment, but the message to the nation should be or will be when that thing happens is Kamala is trying to push him away as much as possible, trying to make her own candidacy. But Biden, I think, is trying to sabotage her candidacy because he was pushed out. Her policy is my policy.
Sabotage. James Golden, Snerdley, keep it right here. Dr. Peter Michalos coming up. Do not go away. You're going to want to be here for this one. Believe me.
The James Golden Show. It's politics, but theater of the mind with James Golden, a.k.a. Bo Snerdley.
Birthday today, David Bryson, guitarist with Counting Crows. This one came to light for many people from the film Shrek 2, Accidentally in Love. Happy birthday to David Bryson. Counting Crows, James Golden, Bo Snerdley with you here. Right now, pleasure to introduce you to Dr. Peter Michalos, who is just, I have been so looking forward to this. Good morning, Doctor. How are you?
Good morning, Bo, and it's great to be on your show, as always, because you always get the truth out.
Well, I have to ask you about truth and food today. There is a story at Fox, and this is one story that you can see repeated in any number of news outlets over time about ultra-processed foods. Not just processed foods, but UPS, ultra-processed foods. And what they do to people's health, the health of people. And they say it causes mental, respiratory, cardiovascular, gastrointestinal issues, metabolic complications linked to cancers, heart disease, metabolic syndrome, non-alcohol fatty liver disease, and type 2 diabetes. Explain to us, please, what are ultra-processed foods? How do they help hurt the body?
Well, first of all, we have to start off with what is the fuel that runs our bodies, and that is food. And food has to be processed somewhere, and it gets processed inside our gut. Our gut is very interesting because it's actually part of the outside world. We think of it as the inside, but that entire tube is actually exposed to the outside world. And the largest surface area
what do you mean by that? What do you mean that tube, the gut is exposed to the outside world?
From your mouth to the exit, think about it. If the contents, the poop basically in our intestinal tract got inside our bodies, we would have a massive infection called sepsis. So if you think about it, we're actually an inverted tube, and the outside world is from our mouth to the exit. And it's that barrier between the inside where we eat in that giant vat of intestinal tract. It's actually the largest surface area of our entire body that interacts with the outside world. We think of it as our skin, but actually with all the folds, if you were to spread it out, it's like a football field of space. There's a lot of area in there, and that interacts with the food. Now, the food that we eat is our fuel, and now we know that 80% of our immune system is inside our gut, inside that tract. And the food that we bring in interacts with that barrier, with that tube, and eventually has to be broken down and transition into our body to supply the energy, to supply, think of it as the gasoline that runs our bodies. Now, the problem is that if you have a vat filled with all these bacteria, viruses that are actually good, that evolved with us, and some of those bacteria actually break down our food. So when you eat, the reason they came out with processed food and ultra-processed food is basically so it can last longer on the shelves. People who live in city didn't have access to fresh farm food, what we call farm to table. So you have to put in these things that kill bacteria so that the food doesn't rot. But guess what happens? It might preserve that food longer and make it ultra-processed so it lasts longer. But those same chemicals in there that are killing the bacteria are also killing the good bacteria in what we call the community, called the microbiome in our entire intestinal tract. And the source of the article you described was actually the British Medical Journal, which is trying to look at the source of many diseases, because as we introduce processed food and sugars into our diets, the longevity has dropped. Our lifespan has dropped. American males now, their longevity now is 74.2 years. A lot of that has to do with COVID, but that's a serious issue. So in other countries, they've banned many of these ultra-processed and processed food, like another article that came out of the UK that French fries in a certain chain, I'm not going to mention names, had potatoes, salt, and oil, whereas ultra-processed French fries in the United States had 10 ingredients. They add these compounds that are related to formaldehyde, which, as we know, is a preservative and an embalming fluid, and it's getting into our food system, and it's not as properly protected and regulated. When you go to the EU and have a steak or a piece of meat, there's no hormones in it because they're not allowed and banned. Here in the United States, we pump in estrogens and hormones into our meat to make them heavier and fatter. But guess what? We eat those estrogens. You know, that's why we have a lot of men that's thought who walk around who have some breast tissue, because we're pumping in all that estrogen, which is not healthy. That's why having meats that are not that are free meats and fish that are wild caught makes a big difference. Like, for example, farm salmon, guess what they're feeding it? They're feeding them corn. Salmon don't naturally eat corn. So the omega-3s and the healthy oils that you're supposed to get from salmon, when you buy it that's from a farm raised that are fed corn, you're getting a different food. That's an example of a processed food because it's no longer natural and wild caught. And really it comes down a lot of it to sugar. A big study in the EU last year was major. It said when we age, our cells multiply faster. And when our cells multiply faster, it makes copying errors. And those copying errors are cancer and chronic diseases. And then they said, well, what makes our cells multiply faster as we age and accelerate the aging process? And guess what they found? Rising sugar levels and rising insulin levels. And you can have a normal blood sugar level and a normal hemoglobin A1C, which tells you the average of what your sugar was the last 90 days. And they say, oh, you're fine, you're fine. But meanwhile, your insulin is rising and rising, keeping that steady so you don't even know it. So that's why a lot of doctors don't check insulin levels. You can sometimes predict diabetes 2 or 3 years before it even happens because you check insulin levels. And if you see a pattern where they're rising, you're saying, wait a minute, something's going on. This person is needing more and more insulin to keep their blood sugar at a normal place between, let's say, 100 and 110. But eventually, your insulin can't do it anymore, and that's called insulin resistance. And I'll just throw in another little tidbit because it's other, news that's been breaking in the last week. They even found that the COVID virus attacks the pancreas that makes our insulin cells, and more people after COVID are presenting with diabetes. So that's another fascinating topic, which we'll talk about some other time, the effects of COVID and long-haul COVID and the record number of people in the United States have gone out on disability because of brain fog, cognitive decline, and now we can add diabetes to the list of things associated with COVID, which is completely fascinating. But getting back to these ultra-processed foods, the bottom line is we have a microbiome and it has to process foods. If you can eat healthier foods and have healthier choices, like instead of ketchup, which is an ultra-processed food that's loaded with high fructose corn syrup, you can give kids a marinara sauce, which has basil, real chunks of tomato and olive oil, and dip it in that instead of a high fructose corn syrup. There are some health food stores that sell ketchup that doesn't have high fructose corn syrup. That's an alternative, but that's an example. And one of the things I did to experiment on myself, I put a patch on that you measure your blood sugar constantly. And I looked at it, and I saw it. When I ate certain foods or ultra-processed foods, the sugar would go really super high. So that's part of the culprit is the sugars associated with these ultra-processed food. And why do they add all these sugars in high fructose corn syrup? Because it tastes better and kids love it. And one of the little dirty secrets in one of the fast food restaurants, that's an international chain, but in the United States, inside the salt, they have some fine powdered sugar. So when you see them with that little shaker at the end, that's how they get kids addicted to it, because that little glaze on there is just a gentle amount of a little bit of sugar. So that's why kids are addicted to some of these national chain fast food restaurant potatoes. So that's where the problem is with ultra-processed foods, and they're not natural, they're not farm to table. And countries like in Sardinia, in Icaria, Greece, in Loma Linda, California, areas of Costa Rica, where they eat more farm to table, those people live longer. And another thing that we've talked about, one of the common denominators in the blue zones is extra virgin olive oil, which has a compound in it called oleic acid. It turns out that oleic acid turns on the sirtuins, which are our longevity genes. And then they said, well, how about Loma Linda, California? They don't eat that much olive oil, but they do eat something called avocados, which turns out to be one of the healthiest fats in avocados. It's also great for your skin, but it also turns on those sirtuins, which are the longevity genes. So that's an amazing finding as well in the recent literature. So basically, sugar is bad. And also they found that they radioactively labeled sugar and they gave it to cancer patients, and specifically a pancreatic cancer patient. And guess where that radioactively labeled sugar went directly to? It went right to the tumor. So tumors are fed by sugars. And there's a group out in Oregon which looked at solid tumors, and they put people on fasts, and they did scans, and they found that the people that they put on fasts, the tumors actually shrunk when they were put on fasts that did not contain any sugar and did not raise their blood sugar levels. So these are the things we're finding, and we didn't have. When you look at archaeology and you look at ancient skulls in a lot of cultures, you see their teeth are in perfect shape. Why? They didn't have all these processed foods, processed sugars. And that's why our teeth are rotting, because sugars, guess what? They feed the bad bacteria. We have a microbiome in our mouth. It's called the oral microbiome. And when you feed the bad bacteria, you get periodontal disease, which is also associated with cardiovascular disease. Another fascinating thing they found, the bad bacteria that grow more with these ultra-processed food and sugars, they actually found them in biopsies of the heart plaques in people who had heart attacks and they had blockages in their heart. When they did post-mortem analysis and they looked under the microscope and they analyzed those heart plaques, they found some of the bad bacteria that are in the mouth in periodontal disease. That's why it's so important to have dental cleanings and definitely protect your oral health, because that's where everything starts, and right where we chew, and that's where a lot of the process starts. So try to avoid ultra-processed foods and read that article. There is a link if you put ultra-processed foods, British Medical Journal. That's where the original paper came out, and it's completely fascinating. And we're going to be hearing more about it. I think even during the election, some of the candidates were talking about what our food is doing to us. And it turns out that basically if you can eat, eggs, meat, fish 80% of the time and more natural farm-to-table things and avoid the processed food, you can still have, 5 to 10%. Like, I reward myself on Sunday. I'll have a dessert that I like. But I realize that, sugar is bad. Sugar promotes cancers. Ultra-processed foods are altering my gut microbiome. And you can actually test your gut microbiome now because of this fancy genetic sequencing. You can find out every good and bad bacteria. I just had a discussion with Dr. Michalos, who's a nationally recognized gut microbiome expert, and they send off a test called the Gut Zoomer test, and it analyzes everything that's in our intestinal tract, and it tells you what good bacteria you have, what bad bacteria, which probiotics to take, which help you have a more healthier balance, and even tells you what foods to avoid so that you can get back into balance. Because when you have a healthier gut, you have a healthier mind.
What is the name? Mm-hmm. What's the name of that test? One more time, please. That went by really quick.
Gut Zoomer, Gut G-U-T Zoomer, Z-O-O-M-E-R, and that's ordered by usually integrative medicine specialists. Because right now, the way healthcare is, you get, people have this supposed Affordable Care Act. You have cards but no care. You get 5 minutes with your doctor, and usually you don't even see a doctor. You see a PA or a nurse practitioner, but sometimes you have to go an extra mile, even if you do it once a year, to get some of this more advanced testing where they check for things that are related to your gut. Because it turns out, for example, that 80% of our serotonin, our happy hormone, is made in our gut, and that plays a major role in mental health. And they've done transfers of poop from healthy people to people, for example, with anxiety, and even in some autistic kids, and they did some poop transfer. They turned them into pills, and when they made their microbiome healthier, they got better. And that is totally fascinating. And another fascinating thing is they took poop from healthy people who had cancer but responded well to the cancer, and they gave it to people who did not respond well to the cancer treatment. And then once they got the microbiome from those people, then they responded well to the cancer treatment, which is totally blow-away stuff when you think about it. So in the next few years, it's going to be part of our routine test to test our microbiome.
This is so amazing. We got to go. See, folks, I told you, you have to come back, promise. And we just continue to talk about the health and how people can take care of themselves a lot better. You are just an amazing wealth of information.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about the Yamanaka Nobel Prize OSK genes, and they're starting clinical trials on human. They've reversed blindness in mice and apes, and they're starting human trials on humans. And that is totally amazing, where they found each copy of our cells has a younger version of itself in our software, and it's stored in there, and these genes can activate it, and they're reversing blindness. And that is totally blow away. And even Jeff Bezos started a company, Altos Labs. He put in $500 million, took the top scientists, paid them $1 million a year. So our audience start reading about OSK genes and reversing blindness and people with spinal cord injuries. So there's amazing things happen. That's why we need to stay healthy, stay alive, keep listening to Bo, because he always gets the truth out. And we want our audience to be healthy, to listen to us for years to come.
Love you, love you. Thank you, Dr. Michalos. We love you. Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
James Golden, a.k.a. Snerdley. A lot of information there, folks. I hope that you're just as excited hearing some of these fascinating things as I am. It's a roadmap, folks, on how we can be a lot happier with our lives. 1973, Cher starts a 2-week run with this one, Half Breed. What? No. She's not talking about her. No. That's a whole nother thing. Come. Never mind. We got to take a break. We'll be right back.
The James Golden Show. The James Golden Show. It's politics, but theater of the mind with James Golden, a.k.a. Bo Snerdley.
Birthday tomorrow, Jamaican singer Millie Small. This one broke in 1964. This single sold over 7 million copies. One of the all-time biggest selling singles in history. She passed away in May 2020. But the record, the music lives on. Rush used to use this as the Barney Frank theme. Let's go to the telephones, shall we? And check in with Tom in Woodbridge, New Jersey. How are you, Tom?
Yes, good morning. I just wanted to take you off speaker. Shifting gears a bit to what's going on overseas. So pretty much the conflict that's now spreading into Lebanon between Israel and Iran's proxies in the region, Hamas and Hezbollah, could easily spread into a third world war, because you have to remember it's not just simply the prospect of Israel directly attacking nuclear sites like Natanz and other sites within Iran itself to destabilize the Islamic Republic, but Iran has backers. It has patrons way outside of the region who are nuclear armed. You have to remember that it has close economic relations with both China as well as the Russian Federation. They conduct joint military. Military drills.
So
we should be looking to deep.
So what? Tom, do you honestly think that China wants to get into a war with us right now? You think so? Their economy would tank. Their economy would tank. And they don't want that self-destruction. They don't want that self-destruction. And do you think Russia can barely keep their pants on with Ukraine, thanks to all the money we're sending over there. And old Vlad keeps talking about, hey, you keep doing this, we're going to send some nukes. And everybody keeps saying, yeah. We've heard it before. Where are the nukes? Their little hypersonic missile that they were threatening the world with flamed out, crashed and burned. I mean, come on. I mean, yes, I understand that there is a threat, that there is, yes, World War III could break out. And by the way, I think it was highly irresponsible of this administration to actually engage Ukraine and suggest that we would allow Ukraine into NATO because they knew they were provoking Russia. They knew it. The same way that Russia tried to provoke us with missiles on Florida coast. Come on, it was a direct provocation. Yes, and the question needs to be asked, why? Why did they do it?
Can I answer it?
Go ahead.
All right. So with regard to the provocations, you're right. There have been direct, deliberate provocations of the Russian Federation in both Eastern Europe as well as in the Middle East. And it's because of the neoconservatives. They want to have a hegemonic world order whereby
Joe Biden is not a neoconservative. Neither is Kamala.
Hold on.
We can't because the music is playing and we have to go. I wish we could. We'll continue this discussion later. Our number duo in the can. Our number trio coming up.
The James Golden Show is on the air with James Golden, a.k.a. Bo Snerdley.
Our number trio underway. James Golden here, Bo Snerdley with you. 800-848-9222 is how you reach us. 800-848-9222 for our remaining hour. Without further ado,
it's time for Radio Royalty with James Golden and America's Princess of Policy, Princess Di.
Ladies and gentlemen, she is the royal of royalness. She is the high of highness. She is all of it. All that and more. Still waiting for my apology. The whole Michelle Obama thing, which I'll never get. Anyway, she is most of the time always right. Our very own, except when she's betting me about something and she's wrong and I never get an apology or an admission that she's even been wrong. Our very own Princess Diana. Good morning, Your Highness.
Well, I was right about one thing especially, and that was to give you royal knighthood, Sir James.
Well, okay, you got that. Well, what have we here? We have another week of the mainstream press committing openly blatant journalistic malpractice. There have been some stories this week, and I know that you want to talk about FEMA and some of the other things, and I got to ask you a ton of things. But first, I got to ask you, what happened to that story about old first gentleman Dougie Emhoff slapping around a woman? He slapped this woman around. Oh, you should see your lady in waiting, Carlos, looking at me like I've lost my mind. Yes, Carlos, it was a story. You wouldn't know it because it only existed for a day. And Princess Diana said, you will see this story today. It won't be around anymore. And she was right about that, too. Yes. Look it up. Second gentleman.
It's in the memory hole now.
It's in the memory hole. Second gentleman, husband of Kamala Harris. Report came out this week, corroborated by 3 different people, that old second gentleman, Dougie Emhoff, slapped a woman so hard in public that he spun her around. And this came right after what's her name, Jen Psaki, was on TV just lauding him for being the new sex symbol of America, redefining masculinity, she says. And that story just disappeared. Then you have the story of the massive, massive suffering that is going on across 4 states in this country. If you look at the New York Times, if you look at the Washington Post, underneath the fold today, at least somebody must have told the New York Times, hey, listen, we got to publish something about the victims here. So underneath the fold, they did an article about people that are still searching for their loved ones. But outside of that, you wouldn't know that people are suffering in America. All you would know is that they think Trump lied about FEMA. Take it away, Princess Di.
Well, I think that this is a really important point you're making, that really there are information silos. The left-wing media has such a tight hold on what used to be called the mainstream that they do not cover inconvenient stories to the Democrat Party. And this is another example. And it really hurts them, and it's going to hurt them tremendously in the election, because the left has no idea how angry people are over the Helene response. This is, you can feel it, this ripple effect throughout the country, because the people who know about what's going on in the devastation are not relying on the mainstream media. And the mainstream media no longer has a monopoly on information. You have TikTok, you have X, you have people uploading their own stories to the internet, and that is going viral. And so this is going to be, I think, the almost unreported story of this election is how ignorance on the left has really going to result in devastation for them politically. And it explains why last night Secretary Antony Blinken tweeted about how he's just announced $157 million in humanitarian assistance for Lebanon. Now, the tone deafness of Antony Blinken and Samantha Power, who announced, electric grid support in Ukraine last night. So this tells you that administration-wide, they have no idea what is the headline in America, which is the lack of federal help for the people devastated by this hurricane, this terrible hurricane. And it is going to hurt them. Now, interestingly enough, Rasmussen had a poll just yesterday where Trump is suddenly, quote unquote, up 7. This happened in the way of what happened. This is just, and so of course people are saying, oh, it's an outlier. Neil Cavuto said this is ridiculous because Trump actually cited it yesterday. Where is he getting that? But I think that this is going to be basically silence going across. People are not going to say so, but this is going to affect the outcome of the election, where you have broken glass Republicans and Democrats now who are fed up with the federal government response, and they're going to respond. Now, I just read a Politico piece. Helene hit Trump's strongholds in Georgia and North Carolina. It could swing the election. They're simply looking at numbers. They're saying the challenge for Trump, the parts of western North Carolina and eastern Georgia that were flooded by the monster storm, are largely Republican. So they're looking at the districts that were hit and saying, well, that's going to cause people not to vote in those Trump areas. And so therefore, the 16 electoral college votes for North Carolina and the 16 for Georgia are going to go toward Kamala. They have no idea. This is not just math. This is fury. And you're going to have the people in those states. That is going to, I believe, in my opinion, my projection is going to be that is going to swing for Trump, because this is not partisan. This is seen by everyone in those states. And, this is going to be, yes, hard for some people to vote, but the ones who aren't going to have it difficult to vote are going to vote hard for Trump.
I want you to listen to a black woman. You said TikTok. This woman is on TikTok, soundbite number 10, Carlos. Listen to this woman. She happens to be she happens to be an African-American woman, a black woman. Just listen to her take on this and see if this is the kind of fury that you're talking about.
Rather vote for a man who is convicted on 34 felony counts, but who is willing to put America first, than to cast a vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. These people are showing us exactly who matters to them. They are showing us every single day who they care about. They have $750 in aid that they are willing to give out to American citizens who have literally lost everything. People's towns, everything have been completely wiped out. They get $750. But when it comes to Ukraine, when it comes to funding other countries, when it comes to rolling out the red carpet and letting millions and millions and millions of illegals come in, you have money for that. You have money to put illegals up in hotel rooms. You have money to send our tax dollars to other countries who's doing God knows what with it. But when we have American citizens here, when they are suffering and who have literally lost everything, our government is MIA. See, this is why I like to vote for facts over feelings instead of looking at how nice a person pretends to be. Anybody can put out a good image. Anybody can make themselves look good. But when it comes down to it, look at what they're doing with the money. Look at who is getting the money. And every registered voter should pay attention to this. Pay attention to how this government is spending your tax dollars.
Do you think that is the prevailing attitude that people have out there, Princess Di?
Absolutely. I think this was a tipping point. It was a moment of clarity that the left cannot control nationally. Everyone saw in stark relief the money that gets sent everywhere else, the money that gets spent on people who do not have the legal right to be here, the money that is paid them per month for living expenses, mortgage assistance, food, clothing, shelter, everything else. And the difference between the way that as she said, the red carpet is rolled out and the money flows. And then the moment someone born here or someone here legally has trouble, they are forgotten, they are ignored, and they are actually, it is hindered that getting help to them by the federal government. So I think this was a moment of clarity nationally. They really are trying to harm Americans, and they really do not put us first. And that is seen as a light bulb moment. We knew this, of course, but the people who don't necessarily pay attention to politics all the time, all of a sudden this is in sharp relief, this is in total focus, and the impact on the election literally 30 days away. Today's October 5th. The election is November 5th. It is really an October surprise that is going to hit them hard.
Wow. Princess Di, hang on. We're going to take a quick break here, and we're coming back. We're going to have more. We're a month out. A month out. Yeah, well, Kamala said 32. 32, that was yesterday. 32, O.J. Simpson, 32. Anyway, 1992, Eddie Kendricks passed away. Eddie Kendricks, one of the original Tempting Temptations. Falsetto. Eddie Kendricks paved the way. I mean, every time I listen to Eddie Kendricks and then listen to, like, Philip Bailey and all that, yeah, Eddie. James Golden, Bo Snerdley with you. Princess Di is here. We're going to continue with the Princess, Her Majesty. When we come back, don't go away.
The James Golden Show. The James Golden Show. It's politics, but theater of the mind with James Golden, a.k.a. Bo Snerdley.
Tomorrow's the anniversary. George Harrison wrote this one, released as the A side of the single. It was the first time that one of George's songs made the A list. And wow, it was one of their biggest hits ever. The Beatles, this was from the Abbey Road album, came out in 1969. The Beatles, James Golden, Bo Snerdley with you, and Princess Di is here. Your Highness. I want to play something for you, Your Highness. This is back in the day. You will recognize the voice almost immediately. Here he is.
Of New Orleans and the Gulf Coast extended their hand for help. Help was not there. We can talk about levees that couldn't hold, about a FEMA that seemed not just incompetent, but paralyzed and powerless, about a president who only saw the people from the window of an airplane instead of down here on the ground, trying to provide comfort and aid.
He wasn't down on the ground trying to give comfort and aid. He was up in it just only saw the damage from up in the sky. And he wasn't down here trying to help people. Yeah. Do you remember that?
I do, but I also want to remind you about the 2012 Hurricane Sandy, which happened 1 week before the election. And the aid that was rushed into the tri-state area and the tents that were set up, voting tents, and the bending over backwards that the government made to a Democrat voting area, not that that shouldn't have happened, but that's what should have happened with Helene. And so the contrast between what the government will do for their own constituents, and Obama was certainly one of them, and it helped him in the 2012 election where he was underwater. But 1 week, he made sure that New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut voted, and they voted for him.
And, I remember Chris Christie trying to make sure that he gave Obama the biggest hug that he could in front of everybody. He was trying to show that he really loved some Obama back then because Obama got FEMA to work.
Yes. So the Democrats do control FEMA. The deep state does. That's my conspiracy theory. So I
don't think that there's any conspiracy here. Wait a minute. I don't think that's a theory at all. People see. Look, we are a week later. Yep. And a lot of locations are still reporting they haven't seen anybody from FEMA. Now, this is not to denigrate the responders that are on the scene that are doing their level best under very trying conditions to help people. I am not trying to denigrate that work. But I'm talking about the work that is not being done.
Exactly. And
we still have people.
Efforts. That's the thing that's the most outrageous, is that they are getting in the way of people doing the American thing, which is helping each other.
All right, let me ask you about this one. The conventional wisdom still is that this is going to be, a month from now, a neck-and-neck race. It will go into the wee hours of the morning, then voting will stop. It'll go into the wee hours of the morning, then voting will stop at 2 a.m. It'll go into the wee hours of the morning, and we still won't know who won. Do you think that conventional wisdom is correct?
Well, I gave you my theory that this event, this natural event, was a tipping point. And it may have been close on paper before. I actually don't think it has been close, but it is no longer the case. And I cited that one Rasmussen poll, the daily tracking poll, which has had the two of them, Kamala and Donald, neck and neck. Now Trump is up 7 suddenly.
Okay.
I think that's what will determine the election. And I think it's now going to be baked in the cake, as they say, and it's going to be a blowout for Trump. because of the lack of response, and also the fact that the Democrats have no idea how angry the rest of the country is, because they're being shielded from that information. The mainstream media isn't covering it. No one in the rest of the country who relies on the mainstream media has any idea, which is why they're calling everyone talking about this liars and conspiracy theorists, and they're making it up. And FEMA went into action to put rumor control on their website. They aren't doing anything for aid control, but they're doing rumor control on their website. They gin that up real fast because they are worried about people telling the truth about them, and they can't control that anymore. And that, in great measure, is thanks to Elon Musk, which I would like to talk about if you have time.
Well, we do. We're going to take a break, and I want you to talk about Elon Musk, and I want you to talk about what you expect to happen today in Butler, Pennsylvania. Today, this is amazing. Elon Musk will be with former President Trump. They're going to Butler, Pennsylvania, the scene of the first attempt to snuff out the life of Donald Trump. Princess Di is with us. We'll be back. Keep it right here. 800-848-9222 is the number to call. And guess what? For some of you, I'll be back next hour as well. An unprecedented fourth hour today. I'll be sitting in for Larry Kudlow. James Golden, Snerdley, keep it right here. Do not dare go away.
There are black beans, and then there are Goya black beans. Whole, plump, delicious, and loved by all kinds of chefs. The professional chefs at Chef's Best love them so much, they awarded our beans their Excellence Award. At Home Chefs love them so much, they awarded our beans the internationally acclaimed Goya black beans. Whole, plump, and oh so delicious. Find them in the Goya section of your local grocery store. If it's Goya, it has to be good.
We're all truly blessed to have a leader like President Trump.
These are the words of Goya President and CEO Bob Unanue. In his new book, Blessed, Donald J. Trump and the Spiritual War, Bob reveals how the word blessed stirred up hatred, division, the cancel culture, and a boycott of Goya foods, igniting a spiritual war for the soul of America. Others reveal in the book that God has placed his hand on President Trump, allowing him to courageously bring America back to strength, prosperity, and to God. Order your copy of Blessed on Amazon now.
The James Golden Show. It's politics, but theater of the mind with James Golden, a.k.a. Bo Snerdley.
October 6, 2020, tomorrow, is the anniversary of the passing away of a legend, Eddie Van Halen. Guitarist, co-founder of Van Halen. Passed away at age 65. He and his brother Alex started performing together as teenagers. After they met David Lee Roth in the 70s, wow, supergroup born. More than 80 million records sold worldwide, one of the best-selling recording acts of all time, Van Halen. Bo Snerdley, James Golden with you here. Princess Di is with us. Okay, so Butler will be the scene. What are you expecting Elon, Donald Trump together?
Well, this is a wonderful confluence of events. I think that this took some bravery for Elon after it's a shame you have to number the assassination attempts, but after the first assassination attempt, Elon came out and explicitly supported Trump. He had been politically saying things online that were supportive of Trump and negative toward the left. But after that happened, he was all in. And so it'll be a wonderful thing to see them together. The billionaires are organizing, and this is something that the left cannot control, because these are people, both Trump and Elon Musk, who have the kind of money where they can't be controlled. And that is the biggest fear of the left, when they can't control either the vast majority of Americans or individuals who are strong. And I just wanted to mention a bit of drama that took place yesterday online in public, which is so satisfying, in which Elon Musk, who is rescuing the government in space and going to rescue the people stuck on the space station in space, but also his company, SpaceX, is getting the Starlink satellite phone communication systems to people who are in dire need, who have no way of getting to the outside world communication-wise after Helene. And so he has been very much working on it. And he has been frustrated because of the government stopping him and getting in the way. And so he was putting up on X, which he owns, the text messages between the helicopter pilots who work for him, who work for SpaceX, and himself as to what was caused. They weren't able to land. They weren't allowed to deliver. They were blockaded. That was a word that was used in the conversation. And Musk said, online, my blood is boiling. And then Secretary Pete Buttigieg, who we call Mayor Pete, just weighed in, and this is what he said. No one is shutting down the airspace, and FAA doesn't block legitimate rescue and recovery flights. If you're encountering a problem, give me a call. And the terrific contempt is how the left sees the rest of us. It's like, you're making it up. It's not happening. And Elon Musk came back and said there are hundreds of reports of FEMA FBA blocking flights. This literally just happened, and he had explained it had happened to him. And he had said, are you calling them liars? And then Elon Musk says, I will follow you. Please direct message me the number to call you. And so a half hour goes by. Elon puts up, still waiting. The helicopter is trying to land to deliver critical supplies. What's the number to call? And time went by, and everyone is hanging by a thread following this, knowing that Secretary Pete didn't expect this. And hours later, Elon Musk put up this message, thanks for the call. Hopefully we can resolve this soon. And a couple hours later, this is what Elon said. Thanks for helping simplify the FAA NOTAM, which is the Notice to Airmen. Support flights are now underway. Much appreciated. Elon Musk had to shame Secretary Pete into taking action and changing what it's called NOTAM is the Notice to Airmen or Notice of Air Missions, so that the places that they wanted to land could give permission. And if Elon Musk had publicly shamed the Secretary of Transportation, this still would be ongoing. So he was able to now land and he is allowed to bring his Starlink, which is a way of communicating with the outside world for these people who are so isolated. So good on Elon for using his platform and for backing down the smug government apparatchiks.
Now, you mentioned something that I want to just veer off from. There is an editorial in today's Wall Street Journal. Actually, it was yesterday's Wall Street Journal. And it talks about the Harris broadband rollout has been a fiasco. You mentioned that Elon Musk, private sector, is actually helping people to communicate with internet using his Starlink services, which, by the way, he has run into so much opposition and so much hassles from this Biden administration. So just as a quick aside on that, this is how the editorial from the Wall Street Journal began yesterday. The 2021 infrastructure law included $42.5 billion for states to expand broadband to underserved, mostly rural communities. We're talking about communities like some of those affected right now with this hurricane. I said that. That's not in the editorial. 3 years later, ground hasn't been broken on a single project. $42.5 billion to help expand broadband to underserved, mostly rural communities. 3 years after that money was budgeted, not one project has been broken ground. Not one. The Biden-Harris administration recently said construction won't start until next year at the earliest, meaning many of these projects are not going to be even remotely available for another 10 years. This is, and this was one of the other things, Commerce, I'm skipping down, is all but refusing to fund anything other than fiber broadband, though satellite services like SpaceX, Starlink, and wireless carriers can expand coverage at a lower cost. A Starlink terminal costs about $600 per home. There are solutions available to do this. Government has allocated $42 billion, not one project done. And now I want to take you back even further, Princess Diana. Do you remember the Gore tax?
Yes.
The Al Gore tax, the Gore tax. During the time of Bill Clinton, how long are we talking about now? Bill Clinton, 1993, 94, somewhere around there.
Yes, the information superhighway needed to
the information superhighway. Al Gore, they pushed through a tax that, ladies and gentlemen, you are still paying for, hidden in the many charges of your phone bill. They passed through a tax, and what was the purpose of the tax? The purpose of the tax was to make sure that underserved, mostly rural communities had access to internet service. This was supposed to be done within a few years. And at the time, Rush was asking, now that this tax is in there, when is it going to end? When are we going to see all this broadband from the Gore tax that they pushed in? And then are they going to stop collecting the money? Here we are. How many years are we away from 1992? 1993. Let's just call it 1994.
30, yep.
30 years you have been paying taxes in your phone bill for this exact same thing. It's still not done. And now more of your taxpayer dollars, $42 billion, Joe Biden, they went back to the well again, and not a single project has been done. And they're saying, oh, it'll be another 10 years before you see anything from this. And there are now services that eclipse what they want to do that are cheaper, and they're still they don't want to do them.
Well,
they're just going to waste your money.
Elon bid on that program and was turned down by the federal government. He wanted to be the vendor, and he wanted to get it done. But that was the problem. They don't really want it to get it done. And what we have learned with the FEMA funding is that the money has been diverted in every government agency to their project, which is resettling and supporting illegal aliens. And so that's where the money went.
Now, to that note, I veer aside again. We get news today that the Biden administration is not going to renew the temporary parole program that has allowed 530,000 migrants from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela to continue to come into the country, so says Mayorkas agency, Homeland Security. For some reason, Princess Di, all of a sudden they said, oh, never mind, let's stop. Why do you suppose they did that?
Well, I really think that the real reason is very, very scary. And I think that the scary reason is that the money is drying up for these people who are in here, who have been pacified and kept relatively civilized because they had money, more than they have ever had in their lives before from the Biden administration. They're here, and they are able to eat and pay their housing and everything else. The money goes away, and these people are no longer going to be pacified. That's the scary part.
Okay, now, a moment of irony. You remember Gordon Sondland, cut number uno, Carlos. You remember this guy, ambassador to somewhere, distant land somewhere, shows up at the impeachment of Donald Trump. He's a Trump appointee. He shows up and he rags on Donald Trump, and they made a big, big deal out of it. Oh, look how awfully. Well, PMS NBC toted this guy out to rag on Trump some more. Only they got a surprise. Let's listen in.
Why was it important for you to say no more Trump because of his January 6th conduct, and do you stand by that?
No, I don't stand by it, and I'll tell you why.
What?
I've now lived 4 years under the Biden-Harris policies, and I have to say that those policies are not only becoming an existential threat to our country's way of life, but to our allies as well.
So when you
and it has to,
Ambassador, I'll let you finish. But
I want to
striking. You said it was a no for me after that.
I did.
And here we are right now.
I did.
And you're saying it's a yes for you.
It is a yes for me. It is an absolute yes for me. That is how badly the Biden-Harris team have prosecuted their job.
But the whole point you seem to be making was that January 6th and that kind of attack on democracy is bigger than any policy difference.
I am seeing so many attacks on democracy that eclipse January 6th.
So satisfying.
Let me just make a quick reference to those of you who watched The Godfather, Part 2. This was just like that moment when they brought out what you call them, 5 aces, to testify. And he gets in front of the committee, stacked, of course, with the political enemies of Michael Corleone. And all of a sudden, they ask him, now, we have direct testimony here that Michael Corleone is the Godfather. He controlled all this stuff. He's a hitman. And here he is, Frankie 5 Aces. He's going to testify. Can you tell us? And he says, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. That stuff? That was just some stuff. The FBI said Michael Corleone did this. Michael Corleone did that. So I said, yeah, sure. And wait a minute. We have your sworn testimony. We're going to get to the bottom of this. This is one of those moments. We called you in here to rag on Trump. You said January 6th was the worst thing ever. And now you're saying that Biden is... No, we got to get to the bottom of this. This can't be happening on live. This was just hysterical. I love this moment.
So fun. They love on the left to have anybody who says anything negative about Trump, they become the new hero. And obscure people now, and it's, Trump's second nephew or whatever, and they get all excited because they just love to hear anybody criticize Donald Trump. But it is really, they're having to cast their net so far now because so few people are actually going for that, especially the January 6th thing. People are not going to vote on that. They're voting on today, and they're voting on the current administration, even though the current administration is trying to blame Trump for everything.
Gotta love it. Well, Princess Di, thank you. We appreciate the time. Thank you for this extended conversation that we have. It's certainly delightful as always. Love you. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
we'll check
James.
back with you. Yep, we're in the last month. This is going to get fun. James Golden here, Snerdley with you. Oh, yes, back in the day. Jimi Hendrix. 1966 is the year. Hendrix had moved to London. He met up with Mitch Mitchell and Noel Redding. They played for the first time. What was born was the Jimi Hendrix Experience. And music would never be the same. James Golden, Bo Snerdley with you. 800-848-9222.
The James Golden Show. The James Golden Show. It's politics, but theater of the mind with James Golden, a.k.a. Bo Snerdley.
$1973. For some of you, it was like yesterday. For some of us, it was like yesterday. Elton John releases his 7th studio album. Bernie Taupin wrote the lyrics to this album over the course of a 2.5-week period. Elton John composed most of the music in 3 days. 30 million copies of this album later. It is still one of Elton John's most iconic works. Elton John, Bo Snerdley, James Golden with you here. We'll be back for some of you who take the Larry Kudlow program. We'll be back. I'm going to sit in for Larry today. Larry's a little bit under the weather, so I'm going to sit in for another hour. If you're on hold, stay on hold. If we can't get you this hour, we'll get you next hour. And we're going to take a lot of calls in the next hour. Princess Di, of course, made some amazing points. Looking forward to chatting with her each and every single week leading up to the election. It'll be interesting to see what the reactions are from the rally. Looking forward to that. Donald Trump returns to Butler, Pennsylvania. There is a story that I had such a hizzy fit laughing. Yeah, once in a while I have hizzy fits too. Yesterday, the New York Times decided to go after one of the moderate Republicans. This guy, Mike Lawler from New York. He was wearing blackface. They said, now that's usually kiss of death for a Republican, not for Democrats. You remember old Virginia Governor Ralph Northam, the one that said that they wanted to make sure that they could get the baby out of the womb and then they'd make it comfortable and decide what to do with it afterwards. Old Ralph Northam, when he was governor, wore blackface and nobody in the mainstream media cared. Here's New York Times the New York Republican who's running against the black former lawmaker Monderi Jones, denied the blackface accusations, saying photos of him dressed up as Michael Jackson for a Halloween party in 2006 when he was 20 years old. He was a fan of Michael Jackson. Besides, why are you getting mad at Mike Lawler for being in blackface when even Michael Jackson didn't stay in blackface? I mean, really? Coming back. Keep it here.